going to talk about the top 5 metrics to track. They do a lot of research and analysis that Molly will share that I think is super valuable, closing out the end of the year as well as moving forward into 2026. I'll give Molly a moment to introduce herself and even the company, just what you guys do and how you guys operate, and we'll go from there.
Perfect. Thanks, Nora. There's nothing more I love talking about than this company, just because I think it really helps so many advisors. And I'm excited just for people to kind of gain knowledge around metrics. And my goal today is really to make data analytics not this big behemoth or scary thing. It's really to break it down into bite-sized pieces that are digestible, and everybody in any office can begin their tracking journey if you haven't started already. So as Nora mentioned, I'm Molly Pierce. I'm the CEO of TrackThat Advisor, happily so. And TrackThat Advisor is a company that does data analytics specifically for financial advisors. So we really answer the question of what's working, what's not, what are these industry standards. We found that there's a really glaring gap in this industry, that nobody really knows what their stick rate should be, what their close rate should be. You know, you go to a conference and you sit next to a friend and they're telling you that they have an 80% close rate, and you're like, gosh, I don't have an 80% close rate. Is that normal? And spoiler alert, it's not normal. That must be just referrals, but we'll kind of get into it. So that's really what we do at TrackThat Advisor. We help advisors understand and know their metrics and really get a deep dive into their businesses as a whole. So that's a bit about what we do. Like Nora mentioned, today we're just going to go over the top 5 metrics. As a whole, we do a lot more in-depth tracking. We make it very easy for your team, but today I really want to focus on kind of the first 5 places you can start. As she mentioned, it is coming into 2026, which is wild to me, but we are getting there. So it is time to start planning. It's time to really get going on that planning. And we offer a lot of tools, even on our website, that will help you plan for free and kind of reverse it. So we'll talk about that a little bit, but we'll kind of dive into the top 5, Nora, if you're good.
Yes, yes, we are ready to move forward. And I know as an advisor or even just part of the team of a firm, there's so many hats you're wearing. And I think it's fun to wear the strategy hat. You know, it'll be nice to put that on and get some motion going for the next year.
Yeah, I love strategy. Strategy and vision, they're my favorite 2 things. And I don't know if you've read the 6 types of working genius, how there's certain minds that do really well with innovation and with the cheerleading of the team and then with the implementation. So strategy and vision certainly kind of fall in line with a lot of, I think, entrepreneurs as a whole and with advisors and what you guys do. So big fan of advisors, and I'm excited to help.
Really great. All right. So right now we see the top 5 metrics to track on the GoToWebinar screen.
Perfect. Awesome. So yep, so these are our top 5 metrics. We'll kind of start with the top one of stick rate and kind of continue down the line. I'll kind of speak a little bit about what each one means, as well as give you a benchmarking guide. I always want to start with benchmarking is a tool. It is not a rule. So there are certain places where you might be like, I don't actually fall in line with the benchmarking stick rate. I'm a little bit different than other firms, and that might be the case. But if you are a typical kind of normal firm, you might want to, that's something to kind of look at and say, hey, like, why am I not meeting that? Is that something I need to be a little bit more aware of? So I'll kind of talk each about, again, the benchmark and then how you calculate this as well. So you could even start to do it for this last quarter of the year is my big push. Is if you haven't tracked all year, don't worry. Really just start now. That's a big piece of the information. So we're going to start with stick rate. So a lot of you probably know what this is, but it's the number of kept first appointments versus the number of set first appointments. So on that stick rate, that's how we're going to calculate that. The benchmark guide is 70%. Now, if you are doing referrals, naturally that's going to be a little bit higher. This is how we get this information, is kind of a mix of all different types of marketing funnels. So we pull together a massive report every year for our firms that we service, and that's going to be a couple of different funnels, like I mentioned. TV, radio, dinner seminars are massive, digital, and kind of pieces of the funnels like that. So that's how we calculate stick rate, and that's how we deem the benchmark there is 70%. Close rate is going to be how many kept first appointments you had versus how many you actually closed. Now, the close rate is going to be about 30% is what we deem that benchmarking guide at. And that is going to be, again, your close rate. So take the number of appointments, even if you're starting October 1st, take the number of kept first appointments versus the number of closed appointments, and that's going to be your close rate. So again, try just for October, go back through your calendars, kind of start to gather that information now for this last 2 weeks and kind of go from there. Next
And
is
how
going to be
frequently,
average.
I have a question. How frequently do these
Yeah.
benchmarks change? Is it annually, quarterly?
Good question. So typically we do the study annually. I will say a couple have actually stuck out and been very consistent over the last 2 to 3 years. Naturally, 2020 was a little bit of a weird year, so that's an anomaly that we kind of didn't really deem part of our benchmarking study, but it typically will stay throughout the year, but we do the study annually if there are changes. So, and actually we see
Great.
that, right? Like the world is different than it was last year, and it changes pretty frequently, but most of our studies we'll do annually, and we'll kind of give that benchmarking guide out at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and I'm sure as like generations change and things like that, there's a lot of different
Yeah.
behavior that comes with that as well.
Yeah, well, especially with so many, financial advisors that founded the firm are now retiring, and so really moving it to a new generation. So we do break it out also by kind of firm type as well. So it could be some of the firms that are maybe more focused on organic and more family oriented, where it's just referrals and existing clients. And then we do a secondary kind of segment of growth mode advisors. So they're doing a couple of different marketing funnels. They want to grow. They have a few sub-advisors under them. And then we do what we call kind of our CEO platform, where that's the founders really just acting as the CEO. They don't take many appointments. They have a lot of advisors underneath them. So we do like to split it up into kind of 3 segments there, because that's really helpful when we're looking at analytics, right? Like you want to be compared to others in your segment.
Yeah. And I heard first meeting being mentioned in both the stick and close. What's the
Yes.
difference?
Yep, so you'll calculate the same kept first meeting. So that's just when you go in with them and you have kind of your discovery meeting. So they come into your office for the first time. It's not necessarily going to be the first 15-minute appointment. I know a lot of advisors right now are doing kind of a first kind of smaller meeting to ensure that they are qualified. So the first meeting is really going to be calculated the first time they sit with you in your office. So that'll be calculated as your kept first meeting. As they came into the office, they actually sat with you, and that's going to be what we're going to be looking at.
Thank you.
No, those are great questions. Hopefully we can clarify. Sorry, sometimes I feel like I'm in the data so much. I'm like, oh, that's, super normal. So it's good to step back and really take a look at it from a big picture perspective. So next is going to be average case size. Now, this is going to be the amount of new assets that a household brings in, that they bring in versus how many you close. So what you're going to do is you're going to take your entire asset amount that came in, divide it by the number of households that closed, and that will give you your average case size per household. I do want to reiterate, it's household, it is not number of people. So that's really big, or you will like drastically decrease your average case size if you're calculating it by number of people. So again, all the assets that came into your firm, your year to date that came in, divided by the number of households that you served that year, and that will be your average case size. And we've seen that we actually just released a study on average case sizes in our resource center as well. So Nora, I'll get you the information to get there. It's a really great center. It has a lot of proprietary studies like that one. So we looked at the average case size year over year and kind of how it developed and what it did. And then as well as broke it down by funnel. So if you're very interested in like seminar average case size, how has that behaved year over year? Because like you mentioned, Nora, generations are changing, generational money is changing hands. There's a lot going on in this world. So it has varied quite a bit, but we house all of those studies in our resource center. So we'll be sure to get you access to that and how to log in and sign up for that if anyone's interested.
Really great. Thank you.
Next is going to be cost per client. So cost per client here is going to be the total amount of marketing costs that you've spent divided by the number of clients that you've closed. So what did it take marketing wise for you to essentially get those clients to come into your office and close? right now what we look at is it's a roughly $6,000 per client cost of those that are closing is kind of the benchmark that we're looking at right now. Naturally, referrals are going to be, again, much cheaper. TV is going to be a bit higher, but as a benchmark, we usually sit around that 6,000. Now, naturally, like everything in the world, that has gone up a little bit over time. This is, has kind of increased and varied a little bit. So once we release this new 2025, I could anticipate it going up, but without seeing the numbers, I'll make no promises.
And do they want to think about how long it's going to take to break even for that?
Yeah, great question. So yep, so we actually help kind of on the reverse engineer side as well. I highly recommend, looking at your marketing plan for the year, especially as we're moving into 2026. Look at your marketing plan for the year and then determine how many households you need to close based on your average case size. So you can take out your payout percentages. You can kind of start there and say, okay, if I know my average case size is X, I typically get paid out X, then you'll know based on that cost per client, how many clients you'll actually need to get there.
And do you find people are taking that to budget for events? Like if they hope to get 10 clients from that event and each person takes $6,000 to obtain, would the event make sense to be like a $60,000 event or?
Yeah, makes sense. So a lot of people do utilize the budget. It's a little bit tough if you haven't been tracking your data, which is why I'm a big proponent of data tracking, because if you don't really know on average how many clients you get for each seminar, it gets a little bit convoluted. So I always say start somewhere, start tracking, understand what your cost per client is. And then like Nora, you said, you can start to really implement that into your budgeting to say, great, this is how much we can spend on this seminar. This is how much we know it's going to cost, and we should expect X number of clients from it.
Really great. Justin has a great question that came in.
Oh.
When looking at new assets, is it assets the household adds right away or over a certain time period, for example, 6 months?
Great question, Justin. So we calculate it by the amount for the year. So we base it off of calendar year. And especially if you're looking at like ROI, for example, what we'll do is take in the total amount of new assets for that household per year and then equate it to the actual amount that it costs to gain that client. So it is going to be for that calendar year. We often, how we break it out at Track That Advisor, which naturally I think is the right way, but there are other ways as well. How we break it out is the following year. If they bring in more assets outside of that calendar year, then we consider them an existing client. So that existing client money would still go toward your, total ROI, but it's not going to be counted when we're looking at cost per client, because then you've already spent the money on them. They're bringing more assets, which is great, and it speaks highly of your firm itself, but it's not really going to be cost per client. So long answer short, the calendar year is how we dictate that. Great question.
Yes, really great. Jennifer is also asking, have you done any work with advisors who run a subscription planning service?
Great question. I love the subscription model because I think it's just revenue that is consistent, and that's really helpful when you're looking at forecasting, when you're looking at budgeting, you can kind of count on that revenue. We do have a lot of firms that will do a subscription service, but I will say a majority of our firms, that's not their main source. It's typically very marketing heavy on those different funnels, like I mentioned, dinner, seminars, naturally, TV, radio, digital. So yes, we can track that, but most of our firms don't heavily rely on that.
Thank you.
I love it. Keep asking the questions. I love questions. So next we'll move to the pending leads. This is one of my favorites to talk about. I think a lot of people get a little bit overwhelmed when they're looking at their year and they're saying, oh gosh, I just need more leads. I just need more leads. I just need more leads. The truth is, if you have a lot of pending leads and you're not even able to service those pending leads and you're not really able to even get to those, that's going to be an indicator that you actually don't need more leads. You need to service the leads that you currently have in-house. Our benchmark typically between days between appointments, this is a big indicator with pending leads. We typically say it should be 10 to 15 days between their first meeting and their second meeting, as well as their second meeting to third meeting. So that's kind of a benchmarking for pending leads. If it's taking a lot longer for you to get your leads in, odds are either A, you need another advisor on your team, which is not a bad thing to have happen. B, you're maybe there's something task oriented is going on with your team that you're not able to get people in, or maybe it's like a front desk issue. I always say, is it a people issue or a process issue? It might be that your process is too slow. You don't have particular processes on follow-up. Like once you finish the dinner seminar, are you following up with them? Are you continuing to say, hey, you came to our seminar, we saw you there, we want to know if you're interested. Are you doing follow-up? Are you doing a drip list? But pending leads is really indicative. Again, if you have a ton of pending leads, you need to get those in. You need to get them serviced. You need to get them seen. If you don't have a lot of pending leads, that might be an issue with turning up your dial on the marketing. You might need to start to do a few more dinner seminars or do more radio ads or do more TV channel station, leads there. So kind of a big indicator. Again, it's not always more. It's not always that you need more. It's that maybe that you need to service the ones that you currently have. So I always see it as you've spent the money to get them in. Now, what can you do to really equip them and really help them ensure you need them to come in? That's a big piece of the puzzle. And we've seen a lot of drip list campaigns that have been awesome, that have been really working out. We started to really track that. So we'll be seeing that a lot in the 2025 aggregate study. And you're more than welcome to sign up for that study. That is a free resource. We're very big about education. So if you email hello@trackthatadvisor.com, we'll get you kind of on that campaign to receive any studies that we give out for free.
That's really deep. I feel like we could talk about this one item for like 30 minutes because it's so intricate. I mean, I don't know. I'm speaking anecdotally, and I don't know if you could confirm this with research, but I feel like I need to be bothered like 6 or 7 times to follow up an event or something to keep reminding me like, hey, do you want to be a client? Or hey, I need X, Y, and Z from you. And I feel like sometimes people think they're bothering their prospects.
They want you as much as you want them. And I think, again, if you believe in what you do and you do feel like you're helping others and servicing them properly, that they do want that. They do want to see that from you. So that's a good point. We should actually do a study on how many touch points it takes in order for a prospect to actually commit. So, but I think it's like anything, right? We go to these seminars, we go to these events, we get all excited about it. And then if someone says, hey, I can't get you in for a month, naturally, I'm going to, like, as humans, we're going to lose a little bit of interest potentially and say, hey, I actually will find somewhere else that maybe can get me in properly or a little bit quicker because I'm ready to go. Now, I have seen also the flip side of this workout. I know we talk about that 10 to 15 day cycle. I have seen where there are some firms that have like $1 million and above average case size. So very, very large case sizes. And their strategy is to say, hey, we are so prominent and so wanted that it's going to take you about 30 days to get in. And that's really setting that expectation of we only work with the best of the best. I have seen that strategy, again, not super popular. I always want to say, what's the trees versus what's the weeds? The majority of people will try to get their prospects in between 10 and 15 days.
Really interesting. And what tools have you seen in the fintech world to complement this metric? Is it something like SnappyKraken to send out email campaigns? Is it something like WealthFeed to kind of investigate and personalize things more?
Yeah, great question. So big fan of SnappyKraken. I really believe in what they do. We've seen a lot of success there. We actually just started breaking out that specific drip list because it is one of the bigger ones in the fintech space. So big fan of SnappyKraken. Also, I feel like realistically, like if you are a smaller firm, I always want to give you tools that you can do on your own. So I would even have someone in your office just go back through all of your RSVPs, and all of your attendees and just start make your own email campaigns. I mean, it's amazing what Canva can do these days and how professional it can start looking, and then send it from yourself. Double check with your compliance, of course. That is not my area of expertise, so go check your compliance before you get me in trouble. But I do think that there's a lot of ways you can do it. Yeah, I always say I'm go to compliance. I love them. But there's a lot of ways you can do it on your own as well. And there is Snappy Kraken that can help in that space. So there's a lot of, there's just great fintech resources out there. I'm a big believer in fintech and just the way, I mean, obviously we work in that field, but the way that we can help, make things more efficient is a really big deal.
Yeah, definitely. And I know you mentioned, was it to text hello to track that advisor?
Yeah. So email hello at
Oh, email.
trackthatadvisor.com. Yep. Email hello. That's going to be the best way at hello@trackthatadvisor.com. And we will get you on that list. We really want to serve this space with education. I just feel like my heart is really in the place of making sure people know their metrics, but also understand their metrics because it's such a difference there. So if we can provide a resource, that's the best place to go. So email us and we can definitely get that resource to you. And like I mentioned, we have a whole resource center, which is really amazing also. It's a huge tool that a lot of people enjoy. It's a fairly cheap resource as well, and you can sign up for that on our website, trackthatadvisor.com. But not the point of today. More, let's stick to the education side. As much as I'm not the salesperson, I want to stick to the education and really teach people.
Yeah, definitely. For the metric about the average case size, do you
Yeah.
find that offices need to identify their target clients better? And kind of there's a pattern where you're saying, typically we do work with 1 million assets, or
Okay.
kind of, I feel like
Yeah.
if you eliminate the people that you don't work well with, it really attracts your target
Yes.
group better. So do you find that?
Absolutely. Niche marketing is massive. We have, I mean, so specific ones. A lot of people are specific on the qualified versus unqualified leads. So they set a target market of, hey, I need $250,000 of liquid assets. That's typically what our qualification is for a lot of the firms we work with. Now, of course, there is outliers there. Some people are like, hey, I just want to help anyone and everyone. If I can help you, I will help you. And that's great as well. But I just really think that if you can kind of narrow your qualification down, massive impact to your firm. We've seen this over and over again. You want to make sure you are servicing the people that are going to help benefit your firm in the long run, as well as how you can help benefit the most for their perspective too. So 250 liquid assets is typically what we see qualification at. Most of our firms, kind of the average case size we see right now is about 550, so a bit above that, but to even like begin the conversation, you do want to have that. You also do want to really find your niche. I always say, like, I feel that financial advising is such a matchmaking style of industry. Like, I don't work well with XYZ people. So, and XYZ people don't work well with me. Those are not the best fit service for me to service. We've had an office come in and they only worked with dental practices. They were like, we only work with dentists. And I'm like, way interesting. How did you get into that? But also, it's important to know who you can best service. Do you service more engineer minds? Do you service more, doctor minds? Like, it really depends on the style of people that you like, and you're naturally going to attract that as a human. There's just so much psychology around that. And even when you go to these dinner seminars, you look at your close rates and it's like, great, is there a reason that it was really high that time versus another time? One, that could be indicative of like the location you went to. It could be indicative of the marketing that brought them in. Was there a specific marketing piece that brought people to your seminars? And then were they qualified? Where did you filter out leads to say, hey, this is who actually does work best with my office versus who's maybe not going to service my office the best? So great question. I love that one.
Yeah, because if they're not a great fit, they're not going to be sticky. And do you find
Exactly.
that people make exceptions too frequently, or when would be a good time to make
Yeah.
exceptions?
Yeah, I think obviously family and friends and like circle of influence. We have an advisor that I work with, and he has a very high, net worth target amount. But then his cousin came to him and was like, hey, can you help me? Of course, I'm always a family first person. I'm like, please help him. And don't worry about the stats in that regards. Yes, it's going to lower your stats, but honestly, you're helping your family members. So there's definitely reasons, or if they're like, man, I've tried all these different places and you can service. I'm just a big believer that we've been called on this earth to help others, and if you can, but also make good business decisions. So if you're making too many exceptions and it's hurting your business, and now you can't take proper care of your payroll and of those that are working under you, obviously take a navigation point there. But for the most part, if you can, you should.
You are such a nice human. I agree with that because I feel like that goes against all the things you hear of, don't mix family and business and, tell
Yes.
them you know a guy down the street that can help them.
And then go get your referral fee. You know what I mean? Which I'm not judging if that's you. I'm not judging. I'm a little bit unknowing of those people, but no, it is true. And at the end of the day, I just want to speak to advisors. Like, you do have a practice to run, and it's not a bad thing to have a qualification standard. I've seen this across the board, and you have a practice, you have payroll, and like, you have to make educated business decisions. So, and if you can refer them maybe to a smaller advisor that's just starting out and they're happy for the business, amazing. Like, you get to help somebody and grow their practice and kind of sustain like your practice qualifications. Great.
Yeah. All right. And now once advisors and firms roll up their sleeves, they get down to these metrics. What kind of informed business decisions can they make from there, from staffing to adding tech or whatever it could be?
Man, such a loaded question, Nora, and such a good one. So I think I just am in such a, like, the power of analytics is huge. It just, if you know your numbers, you're able to make such good business decisions, but not based on your gut feeling, not based on anecdotal information, or not based on any, pressure from other advisors or anybody in your office. You're really able to look at the numbers and go, okay, this is where we stand budget wise. If I can forecast, because I know we are potentially going to get X number of clients at this number of profit, then you can look at that and say, okay, I can afford to add on another staff member. I could grow my practice with another advisor. Big decisions. I'm just such a believer in data, and looking at it year over year. Also, I think from an encouragement standpoint, if you can look at your data and say, great, this is where we were last year, this is where we are this year. From a psychology perspective, how great is that for your firm to know that we're growing, that everybody's been a part of an amazing team? It's a really big deal there. But again, looking at especially dinner seminars, I just think that if you can narrow down, this location is working, this location isn't working, and then reallocate those dollars there, or like this time of seminar is working, or this topic of seminar is working, you can really start to narrow it down and find your exact target market and say, great, I'm not going to spend money on this location because it's a much lower ROI at the end of the day. I'm not going to do this topic because we typically don't get people interested in this topic to set appointments. And then you can really narrow it down and say, this is where we fit in this market. And again, I am an abundance mindset person. And it's like, if you're really good at talking about taxes, be that tax person, be the best in your area to speak about taxes. And someone else might be really good about talking about retirement, and then let them be the best in the retirement area. You want to attract, it kind of goes back, you want to attract the people that you feel really good to work with and that you're knowledgeable to work with as well. It's a really big deal.
Yeah, I might be biased because I work in marketing, but it sounds like marketing is one of those key metrics.
Huge. Marketing is huge. I mean, even when we talk about like the trackers that we utilize and the dashboards that we utilize, half of it is marketing, half of it is massive there, and then half of it is production to really say, okay, this is what came out of that marketing. But marketing is core. It is so foundational, and I don't want to scare people either. Marketing doesn't have to be, I think a lot of people associate marketing with like big money spend. That's not always the case at all. It could just be doing your circle of influence. It could just be, asking for referrals, or like I mentioned, just going through your contact list and saying, who can I actually, get out to and get in front of and retouch that they might be able to come back in. So, but I'm with you, Nora. I'm biased as well. I think marketing rules the world, and I'm learning that quickly because it's not my skill set. So I'm like, okay, I bless the marketers.
Yeah. And where do you find people are housing this information? Like in their CRM? Are they using the source category to see where a bulk of their business is coming from? Are they running reports on those center of influences to see who's referring the most?
Yeah, great question. So kind of two different avenues that I find advisors kind of fall into. One, they aren't tracking at all. They don't want to house the information. Their CRM is really a Rolodex. It's the names, it's the emails, it's the contact, it's the workflows, but they're not really tracking information. Secondarily, that I kind of see is the people that are trying to track but get very frustrated by it, right? So they have a couple of different spreadsheets. I guess there's a third category also that's doing it great, and that's amazing. But typical is those two categories. So they might be having, you know, a spreadsheet or something that they're looking at. Their marketing team is kind of filling in, their production team is kind of filling in, but they don't talk to each other. And then the team, you know, kind of gets frustrated because the advisor will come in and say, hey, I want to know my ROI on my seminar 3 months ago. And the team's like, you've never asked me that. I don't know where to find that information. I don't know how to do that information. So that's really where Track That Seminar or Track That Advisor comes in, is we're able to kind of say, hey, we're going to either pull it from your CRM or give you the tools to fill it in about 15 to 20 minutes a day, fill it in, and then it's all going to populate for you. So that's an option, but also, again, I want to give you a tool if you're, you know, a smaller firm and potentially can't afford a vendor or a fintech company there. I don't think we're expensive, but I want to make sure we always kind of give a free option. So best way to start is just start doing these 5 metrics. Just start tracking your stick rate. Even if pick one, just pick one. Say for the rest of this year, I'm going to track my stick rate and I'm going to see month over month if it grew and if we were able to, you know, capitalize on what we were doing, and just start there. I want you to start tracking because I know the importance of tracking and the business decisions that are made. So just start with one place, and then maybe next year you're like, great, I'm going to track my stick rate and my close rate. And then in the next quarter, you're like, I'm going to add average case size. So you're more than welcome to contact us, of course, if you're like, hey, I want an all-in-one solution. Amazing. But if you want to start on your own, just calculate stick rate, number of kept first appointments versus how many were set on your calendar. And that gives you a place to start.
That's so powerful. I feel like that really makes this intangible metric really tangible and have some action behind it. So the kept first set, can you just explain that one more time?
Yeah.
You said that the benchmark is 30%.
That's the close rate. Yes. So for stick
Okay.
rate, that's, you'll go through your calendar and see how many people actually kept their first appointment, how many came into your office, sat in front of the advisor. That is going to be the number of kept first appointments. And then you'll divide the kept first divided by the number of set first appointments. So how many people were on the calendar that said they were going to come in, whether they came in or not, how many people set a first appointment on the calendar. So that's how you calculate stick rate. And roughly that should be 70% is the benchmark there. If you're
Okay.
not meeting that 70%, I highly, highly, highly recommend checking in with your marketing people and with your appointment setters and saying, hey, like, are we following up with people? Are we reminding them of their appointment? Are we ensuring that they know when their appointment is? Why are they rescheduling so many times? That's going to be a much more process piece versus a people problem. So just check your processes there. And then close rate is going to be the number of kept first appointments. So again, how many people came into your office versus the number of people that closed, that became clients, that gave you money, that did the 95 DocuSigns. That's going to be the number of closed people. So you'll take the full number of closed households, and now remember, it's households, not people, divided by the number of kept first appointments, the people that sat in your office, and that will give you your close rate. So right there is about 30% if you're doing marketing funnels. Naturally, again, referrals are going to be much higher. You know, certain leads are going to be lower. So take a look at your office overall, even for these last 3 months. Big thing there. If you want to go back, amazing. I'm so rooting for you if you want to go back through the year. But if you just want to do those ones, amazing. Start now.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Is it's hard to go back 7 years, but if you start from this point
Yes.
forward, it's doable. It's digestible,
Yeah.
right?
Everything digestible. And it's like anything, right? Like you start working out and you're like, oh man, I'm gonna, you know, lose 30 pounds this week. Well, you're setting yourself up for failure because you're not. But if you say, hey, I'm gonna change this piece of my lifestyle and then hope in 6 months that that equates to something, then you're a little bit more realistic. So I love the dreamers, but also with anything in life and even in data, it's like be a little bit realistic in there. So
Yeah, and each metric, honestly, just my brain is, firing off different things. Each
yeah,
metric could be so many things. Like even just the close rate of the kept versus set. I mean, it could be somebody walked in and thought your office smelled funny or something weird like
totally.
that. And they're like,
Yes,
I'm not gonna
yes.
work with you.
Yeah, isn't it funny the little things that turn people off? I'm like, oh man, I don't have a high empathy for small factors, so that would bother me. But you can also start. I would even say like, hey, if you're raring to go, you're ready to begin, even just tracking stick and close rate. Track stick rate by advisor, track it by source, and then track it by overall office as well. So I think if you can narrow it down to there, especially if you're saying, hey, this advisor doesn't have a really good close rate, that might mean, hey, he or she needs more education. They need more training on how to close people. That can be a really big factor there as well. So I recommend, again, doing it by advisor, doing it by source, and then by doing it by overall office.
Yeah, and sometimes people could get defensive when you start introducing KPIs, but if you approach it like we're just trying to help, we're trying to make you
Yeah.
better.
Absolutely. And I think that that's a really fun part of our job is we kind of get to be the bad guy a little bit, but for
Yeah,
good reason,
you
right?
do.
Yeah, it's like, gosh, we can tell you your stats, but these are realistic. And it's like, I would want to know if I was not doing my best or if I was not meeting benchmarks because now I'm hurting the company. And it's like, okay, we're not firing you. Let's do training around that. Or let's do, different seminar tactics, or let's go to more teachings on that. So again, it's really just highlighting. I always see it kind of as a black light. I'm in Arizona, so we have a lot of scorpions. And so I always feel like data is a bit like a little bit of a black light. You don't know what's there until you start searching it out and kind of start shedding light on that. And then you realize there's a lot more scorpions outside your door than you thought, but you don't know until you get that black light. So it's, I mean, we're fine. Arizona's super fun, but we do have a lot of scorpions. So, but that's how we create data. I'm like, use your black light, start searching, for impactful in a positive way as well. If you can look at your firm and say, hey, your close rate's at 40%, industry benchmarks at 30%. Isn't that amazing? Like you're doing 10% higher. Or for a lot of larger like IMOs, FMOs, BDs, we love to roll up that so we can say, hey, as a whole, you're doing 10% better than industry standard for your advisors. So I always encourage, big firms say, hey, you have 30 offices under you. Great. Like, let's look at all 30 offices, roll it up and say, as a whole, we're doing X percentage better, or worse. And that's a different conversation, but that is one that is needed to have.
You're right. I love that. And I think when your team gets large, it's nice to let everyone, do their own thing and give their own experience, but it does need to centralize in some way. And I think those statistics is how you can centralize it.
Right. And giving just a benchmark, just saying, hey, and even, I mean, we have so many benchmarks on specific funnels as well. That feels a little bit less personal. It's like, dinner seminar, our set rate is this, our stick rate's this, our ROI is this for benchmarking, which we offer that as a resource. If you want to email hello, we're happy to send that over to you. It's just a really good resource to look at your specific funnels and say, okay, am I seeking out the right areas? Am I seeking the right channel for me? Because I know sometimes people are like, I'm a TV personality, and it's like, nope, you are a radio personality. You close a lot more radio leads than you do with TV. So like, let's focus on that and let's stick to that because it's a much higher ROI for you specifically. So, or vice versa, you might be on radio, but you close a lot more on TV. Then we know where to allocate marketing dollars and they're not wasted.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. Well, I personally love this conversation. I think that everyone can kind of leave recharged by, knowing what to implement, what to look for, what to focus on, how to go from here. I would love to hear how people can learn more or go from here.
Yeah, of course. So again, I'm probably the worst salesperson on the planet, but I know and believe in what we do, and I've seen it help so many advisors. So we just really want to help the masses, and we have a lot of different products. I mean, scaling from very, very cheap resources to free resources to a little bit, other resources as well. So emailing hello@trackthatadvisor.com is the best place to start. And then or submitting a contact form on our website. It'll ask you a couple of questions so we can direct the best product to you. We also have a whole resource center. If you go to our website and on that top right-hand corner, it will say the resource center. You can sign up there for that. It's a great resource. We even have a really cool AI bot in there that we've built based on studies and on resources that we've done. So we know the data is integral. It's not anecdotal. And you can ask it things like, hey, what should my average case size for TV specifically be? Or what should my average case size for dinner seminars be? It's very informative and it's very prescriptive, especially if you're a newer advisor, it's a really helpful resource. So that's a great place to start. But again, emailing hello or filling out a contact form on Track That Advisor. You also can follow me on LinkedIn. I try to share a lot of pieces from our resource center and a lot of stuff on there. Molly Pierce on LinkedIn. It's a generic name, but you'll see it.
Nice. I love that. So follow Molly on LinkedIn. Go to trackthatadvisor.com slash or I put it in the Q&A and the chat. But the top right has a button that says Resource Center. You can access information there, or you could email hello@trackthatadvisor.com and get more information. I have a random question. Tell me
Yeah.
the meaning behind the business name Track That Advisor. I was wondering
Yeah,
that.
great question. We wanted something that was just very easy. It's just tracking advisors. Tracking your practices and tracking is so important. And then we even call a lot of our tools trackers initially. We've now kind of developed out of that. We've kind of launched from, Excel and sheets into our own platform. So it's been a bit evolved, but we just wanted something simplistic and just say, hey, a lot of people call us TTA, which is great also. It's short and sweet. So TTA or Track That Advisor is pretty common what we're known for.
So great. All right. Well, those are the places you can go from here, and hopefully it was really helpful today, added some value to your office on what to look for, how to start, and where to go from here. I hope and that everyone has been tracking these things, but sometimes we don't live in that perfect world. And I think it's nice to kind of just put on that strategy hat and get more re-energized for the upcoming year.
Yep, absolutely. So I love it. Any resources we can give, just let us know.